Kia ora and welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod once again, off the back of the Crusaders winning another title and another away final, which is incredible the way that they do it away from home. We'll be getting into plenty about that. Maybe a bit of feedback from the All Blacks coach that we've had after last week's episode as well. Stay tuned for what Ian Foster had to say. And before we get to any of that though, we've got a few guests coming in. First, of course, James Parsons, as ever, in the studio after what was a hell of a final.
It was a great final.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of chat about, I suppose, the refereeing performance, but it was still one of the great finals. And even though Chiefs were penalised a hell of a lot, it went down to the wire.
Yeah, it was. And now joining us on a Monday, for the first time in 4 years on a Monday after a Super Rugby final, it's Bryn Hall. Thank you very much, Bryn, for joining us. And Bryn's mate alongside him, Jack Goodhue. You know, Bryn has never showed up on a Monday before, so we really appreciate you in the middle of celebrations turning up on the show.
Oh, mate. Like I said, I wouldn't just do it for anyone. You know, Bryn was joined us for a few celebrations last night, and he asked me, and I think I owe him a few favours after serving him some raw chicken when we were staying together about 5-6 years ago. So this is it, Bryn. I don't want to hear any more about it after this.
Hey, you beat me to the punch. You used my own line that you knew it was coming as well. You've just put it out there first. It's smart. You're very
sorry,
smart.
man. I know that's your best chat you've got against me, so that's how you use it.
You just didn't bother cooking it, huh?
Well, who needs cooked chicken, right? Look, I got it completely wrong. I don't know how I got it so wrong. I thought it was, and maybe the oven wasn't, heated up enough, but it certainly had done its time. But that chicken came out well raw, so I still tried to eat it. Too much pride, but yeah, we're probably lucky we didn't get sick.
But you don't look sick right now either. You've had 2 or 3 days of celebrations going on. You look like you're in a fairly fresh mood off the back of another Crusaders title.
Oh, thank you. Obviously, you can still celebrate without, going overboard, and I've certainly done that. A couple of big days, long nights, but it's been awesome just celebrating with the team. Some key players that are leaving, and I've done the journey with Sam, Richie, and I've stayed with Ray throughout my whole rugby career, really, where we started together at Canterbury in 2014. So a lot of emotions, but it's been an awesome couple of days just being with the team.
What's that like with Razor, mate? What do you guys do for him over the next week or so, while he's still got some time?
We had the information early that he was going to be leaving, so we've been able to really enjoy knowing that it was going to be his last ride with the Crusaders. But I don't think we do anything different in such of. There's been some amazing Crusader men that have left over the years. And I think the likes of Kieran Reid and Matt Todd and Ryan Crotty, all have given so much to the jersey. Razor's given just as much. Obviously, he's just had so much success that's come with that. So we acknowledge the success, but as far as being part of the team, he's just another great Crusader man.
I think first and foremost, him as a person is very caring and cares deeply around his players, and that isn't just the starting guys or the experienced players. It goes from 1 to 37, and sometimes coaches kind of miss that. They say it's a 37-man team, but sometimes they miss that aspect of connecting with players that you probably don't have to a lot. So. Has been so good for the Crusaders. I know that he was quite emotional last night, and even during the week as well, just seeing the messages and the things that he's been saying in the media. So, it's a big loss, but I think the way that the boys put on a performance last night will probably be one of the sweeter ones. I think Joe Berg was pretty close to it, Jack, but I think last night, with what you guys went through adversity-wise, it was pretty special. I know Razor definitely enjoyed that as well.
Where does the breakdancing rate out of the 7 titles?
I think Richie came out first and did a couple of moves, and all of a sudden Razor's thinking, oh, is that what it's supposed to look like? But obviously Razor's had, he should be actually feeling better. He had a pretty major knee operation late last year, I think it was. So he's certainly moving a lot better around training. He's getting a bit of knee bend. There's a lot of pressure on that breakdancing, but I always feel like he lives up to it. he gives the fans what they want, and it's just good fun.
So was Razor on the physio table before that, do you know, Jack?
Oh, mate, it's so annoying. Like, so actually you're trying to get your preparation right for the final, right? And you're getting strapped and massaged, and he's on the physio table, so it really pushes your warm-up and your preparation. But I guess you just know that he's going to be there, getting a bit of deep heat into his shoulders and knees, so you just take that into account when it comes to the final.
Well, I suppose that's enough of the celebration chat. I'm more interested in the week leading up to that final because, you look at the Chiefs' year at home, they're going in as favourites, but the way you guys seem to build, Bryn said it really well last week, is you were peaking at the right time. No doubt you had the belief, but what was the game plan going into that week?
Well, the game plan was we knew so much of their play. We rolled around first, Damien McKenzie, and then obviously for me it was their back three that we needed to shut down. Sean Stevenson, awesome season. Ottawa, fantastic. So put a lot of pressure on Damien with his kicking game, have good process around how we're going to nullify that so they don't get territory gains from their awesome kick game. And then from there, this is how do we make sure we've got plenty of defenders around their dangerous back three. Obviously, they had some moments. I would say, as far as that final goes, being fortunate enough to be in a lot, that was super hard. I would say it was the hardest. The one in Joburg, we got to a nice early lead and we held on, and that was very difficult. But that Chiefs one could have gone anyway, and that was what made it, special and I guess such a thriller.
Probably the first time in that seven years that you're actually in a tight contest and it was going to go either way. Was there anything different that you guys talked about on the field? You would have done your prep throughout the week with your what-ifs and whatnot, but did it feel any different? Did you feel any more added pressure, or was it just business as usual in finals time?
We were under the pump there for a time, and it was that fortunately Damien was offside for that overthrow line out, so we caught a lucky break there. But as you know, Bryn has been through a lot of games, not necessarily those finals, but games where we have had to claw back and get a close win. So we can take a lot of confidence from that. We just stay process driven, right? We just, what's our next task? What do you need now as an individual? And just focus on that. Can't let the emotions or the expectations get to you in those moments.
How big was the inclusion of Sam Whitelock? Because you know what he brings as an individual, but man, he must give the people around him a lot of confidence, especially at set piece time.
He's a warrior, as you know. We had a lot of line outs. I don't know what our success rate was, but obviously early on it seemed like we just went through all of our set piece moves to pretty good effect as well. So to be smooth there and win our line outs, and I think obviously we disrupted a few of theirs as well. So set piece is huge, especially in finals footy, and to get the win in the line-out area was probably the difference.
Yeah, I think it was, and you guys ran at 91% with 23 line-outs, and you kept them to 57. And I do think not only the impact he would have for the Crusaders as in Sam Whitelock, but also the way he makes you think as the opposition. You know how good he is, what a student of the game is, and sometimes that can play on your mind, especially about where you want to throw. And he certainly challenged them there.
And against two guys who are All Blacks and very good All Blacks.
Yeah, and a hooker that's been thrown exceptionally well. He managed to disrupt, but that is his superpower. He is one of the best in the world at I suppose,
I think
winning ball, but also stealing it.
I think watching that early on, I think they had maybe 5 or 6 lineouts, and they had a couple of 4-mans, 5+1s. There was even like a 4 with the midfielder and the winger in that lineout. And so I think it kind of, you talk around setting them up, because obviously, in the back end of the games when it's tight, they tend to go to their lineout more, and that's what you saw with Cody Taylor. Was that a plan, Jack, that you wanted to try and show different pitches at the start of the game to then open them up in the lineout more to the back end of the game?
As far as that kind of stuff goes, Brent, I think it's a real, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what's going to work at the time. So you want to show a little bit of variation and then go, yeah, that's worked. We're going to go back there. Obviously, we've got some success in the line-out more. So we start going back to that later in the game.
How many beers does Cody have to buy at the end of year drinks? Considering the amount of tries that get laid on.
Yeah, he's not making any money this month.
Fair enough too. You guys go to away finals. You mentioned Johannesburg. We've seen Auckland. Actually, the first 3 titles the Crusaders ever won are all away from home. What do you guys do in the lead up to an away final? Is it any different from your normal routine before a home final? Like, what is the approach, and why are you guys so good at nailing that particular thing? An away final is a hell of a thing to win.
Off the back of some very impressive defence at home against the Blues and dismantling their attack, again, you've kept the Chiefs in this final to 26% gain line. Was there a shift in the way your guys' mindset was around that line speed for 2 weeks in a row? And I suppose you can include the quarterfinal in that as well. It just seemed like you guys lifted the ante around that line speed and pressuring those players.
I think naturally it just comes with that intensity in the final where you know you're just going to dig that much deeper. But I think a lot of credit goes to our defensive coach, Tamati Ellison, where he took our defence from week 1 against the Chiefs, where we didn't nail it at all, to building every week and just instilling a lot of confidence where the whole team was on the same page. And I think we just worked together really well as a unit.
It seems like a pretty simple philosophy.
Don't overcomplicate it, but it's also really buying in and trusting what your coaches are saying. And I think Tam just took the time to get around every individual rather than just presenting in the team meeting, this is what we're going to do. Really understanding the why behind it all. We understand the why. You trust the guys outside you that they're on the same page. Yeah, you're right. It is simple once you can get that.
So often, I suppose they talk about teams that can adjust to a ref, and you always probably look to push the boundaries early and see where that line is. With how quick he was to penalise in and around the breakdown, did it make you guys adjust your approach around there?
The reason why he's quick to penalise around the breakdown was probably 2 teams that are really aggressive at the breakdown. So it wasn't necessarily one team that was getting the upper hand. It was 2 teams that were really going at it, and it creates pitches, obviously, that there needs to be a call, It's not necessarily not one team necessarily dominating there and getting the ball. So obviously the ref needs to jump in. I haven't actually watched the game, and I need to, probably really watch it to be able to have an opinion on that. Again, first, as you're outside back, you're kind of looking up to see where the space is rather than what's actually going on in the breakdown.
Jack, just on there with the breakdown, because I think if you look at the Northern Hemisphere right now with the France, Ireland, even the South Africans as well, that breakdown area has been massively talked about on our podcast for the last 12 months. Have you found that there's been growth in that area in the New Zealand sides? It's been more of a focal point this year and really getting that attention to detail when it comes to the breakdown, knowing what's going to be ahead, I guess, at the World Cup?
Yeah, I think we've made jumps in the right direction, but I feel like it's still something that we need to get better at, probably when you compare to some European teams. Like, we've got great counter-attack, we've got skillful forwards, but if you don't win that battle at the breakdown, it's a tough game, as you know, Bryn, especially being at the back of it, trying to get some clean ball. So yeah, we've made gains, but we obviously need to keep on prioritising it.
I'm interested in Jack's take on Dallas McLeod and obviously making the All Black squad. What is it that you like about him that you see during the week that we probably don't see on game day?
Dallas has been a guy that's been in the environment for a while now, and every year he's just gotten better. And particularly this year, he came in and at pre-season, the first few rounds, what he got really good at is just seeing the space and making the right decisions. And Foz is going to love that. He's obviously very physical as well, which is probably what a lot of people have seen, beating defenders, making good tackles. But his scanning, getting to the right position as a midfielder, and obviously then that ability to, we needed a right wing. He took his opportunity there, played really well, and to have a good player like him on the field as well as, Braden, Lester, and Will at the back just creates a real dynamic backline. So a lot of good things to say about Dallas. He's also an awesome person that's just going to keep on learning.
You said scanning there. What do you mean by scanning in a midfield context?
Yeah, so scanning, you're just looking up and you're seeing the space, right? So usually you're you're one player out from the first five, there might be a few forwards in front of you. You're either telling the forwards to carry, or you want the ball in your hand. So it's just scanning and seeing what the picture is and then making the right decision. You're
in the All Blacks 15. Your afterglow, how long does your afterglow last, and when do you join that squad?
So flying into Auckland on Saturday, and then I think they're splitting the flights. But yeah, I'll fly over to Japan on Sunday. Looking forward to it.
You've had a few injuries in the past couple of years around that. Have you found that if you do get a bit more game time and you feel like you've been able to repeat those performances of consistency and being out on the field, that'll help you end up for that World Cup role that I obviously know that you want to be a part of?
Look, yeah, Bryn, I'm just focusing on staying healthy and playing the best rugby that I can. Obviously, the injuries have been unfortunate, and I've had to adapt and grow and work hard at getting back. But it's just I'll just focus on playing the best rugby that I can, and if that's good enough to make the World Cup, then that's awesome. But I know Foz has picked an amazing team with some good midfielders that are definitely up to winning the World Cup if I'm not one of them. Yeah.
I'm really sorry that I started that injury for you as well in 2021, my knee. So I do apologise for that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jack.
You're out of position. You're out of position for what we call defensively there, but I've forgiven you.
I've heard a conspiracy theory that was actually Bryn trying to make it so he once and for all was faster than you, Jack.
Yeah, it was just we'd been wanting to have a sprint race for so long, and it was just funny. It was only after that injury where he was ready to go. He always complained about a back injury before that. He needed to rest.
Could you give us, from your point of view, what's different in your prep from 12 to 13?
Not too much in my mind, but yeah, you're looking as a 12 to be a bit more of a ball player, a bit closer and putting your outsides away. As a centre, you're kind of making that final decision of if you're going to carry in a hard line or if you're going to hold your feet and try and put your winger away. So it's just, you're just slightly out and just looking at different pitches as far as, is it one pass to space as a centre, or as a 12 you're thinking, is the guy outside me in a better position to then put my wings away?
Then defensively, would it be right in saying like a little bit more vulnerable at 13?
A little bit more vulnerable as far as you're defending a bit more space, and obviously defending backs as a 12, you can pick up the heat from the forwards coming around the corner, and you just got to man up and make that tackle sometimes.
And do you enjoy them as much as each other?
Yeah, for sure. Different elements. But I think as 12, probably end up making a few more tackles, which is what I enjoy. Yeah.
Could you give us an update on what your future looks like, whether it is heading overseas or whether it's staying in New Zealand?
Yeah, just working through that at the moment. There has been an offer come from Castra, and looking into that would be an awesome opportunity to go to France. My wife and I would love the chance to do something new, because we've had such a rich experience at Crusaders. Would be good to freshen up and do something different, but Crusaders have been awesome, and it would be a hard team to leave, so we're just working through that at the moment. But either way, just keen to keep on playing footy.
Awesome. You would have seen Bryn Hall's Instagram over the last 6 weeks and thought, geez, that's the life, eh?
That is the life, yeah. That it's been on a big old holiday, that Bryn. But hey, he's earned it. He's got a good contract over there. Obviously, yeah, Japan is a cool place to go because of that time off, and but looking forward to, if I do go to Europe, that would be something to look forward to.
Good to see that you can finally buy some coffees for us for that contract you're going to get, mate, if that's the case.
There's no truth to that at all, Bryn. You know that's a complete lie.
Was Bryn a good flatmate, mate? Was he buying the coffees and doing all those bits and pieces, keeping the kitchen tidy?
Surprisingly tidy. Would I say hygienic? Maybe not, but tidy, yeah, good.
I'm imagining a battle for time in the bathroom possibly too, because he's always immaculately presented.
Yeah, there's a big wee line for the bathroom in the morning, but he is a good flatmate. I miss you, Bryn.
I miss you too, mate. Good on you, Jack. Good on you, Jack.
Isn't this nice?
Oh, that was so sweet. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Jack. We appreciate your time, and good luck with the All Blacks 15 over the coming weeks. And congratulations.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
After a couple of days of celebrations, he looked pretty good, I thought, in the end, Jibber.
He did. He's very relaxed. It looked like he was prepping for another round, though. Just taking a quiet afternoon.
Yeah.
Before Bryn goes and shouts him a few drinks tonight.
Yeah, you shoehorned yourself into the celebrations last night, mate. What happened there?
No, I just got a message from Big Ray, and it was just more so catching up with the boys because they're obviously going into camp on the Tuesday, so wouldn't have a chance to see them. So, yeah, picked my time really, really nicely. I don't think I would have been going there if the result went the other way. So, fortunately, the boys got the job done, and it was a good night out at Whitelocks.
That's awesome that they keep all the old boys tied in, and can bring everyone who contributed in.
Yeah, it's great. A lot of the other clubs do that kind of stuff as well. I think the boys even had their court session, and I think who was there? Mule was there, Chris King and Corey Flynn ran the court session. So, it's great to get those old boys back that are able to instill a bit of hair on the old chin for some of the young fellas. So that was a great night and an awesome evening, and some great words said from a lot of Crusader men as well, which was pretty special to be a part of and hear them as well.
Nice. Where did you think it was won and lost, Bryn? When you look back at the game, obviously there was the discipline and there were the numbers advantages. But where did you feel that the game was won and lost outside of that?
Oh, well, look, I think when push came to shove, we could talk around the penalties and the penalty count. 6 penalties within the first 5 minutes, 3 yellow cards. And the Chiefs obviously still had the chance to, after all that mayhem, to still win the game. I just think in the moments that the Crusaders had, off the sin bins, especially Jacobson and even Sam Cane as well. Cody Taylor's maul try, which I thought, the set piece parity was going to be massive in that game, and I think it came to fruition in that late part of the game. I think, 21 line-outs, but when they needed to go to the tried and true of that line-out maul, they got the job done and were able to score tries. Because I think, in the first half, considering how much position they had and I guess the amount of chances that they had through the ill discipline of the Chiefs, the scoreboard at the time probably didn't reflect the dominance I thought the Crusaders had in that first half. And then the second half, I thought the Chiefs played a lot better. That first 20 minutes had a lot of momentum. You saw Narawa, Sean Stevenson really having some attacking ability and really causing a lot of questions. And then, unfortunately, Sam Cane's sin bin. And I think the turning point, and the big point of that game was in the 55th minute, the overthrow that doesn't get called the whole season. If that isn't scored, and doesn't go upstairs, then they end up scoring that try 2 tries later. From that, if they don't score and there's 2 phases, that doesn't get brought up, and it's 27-15 with 20 minutes to go. And I think the Chiefs win that game if they have that try scored. So, from that, the Crusaders just found a way. They just hung in there and just, I guess, more so lived off the crumbs, I thought. They didn't play particularly well. And the moments that they had to score, like I said, with the set piece, they won the game. So, yeah, I thought the Chiefs, through their ill discipline, probably should have won that game, but Crusaders found a way and won it ugly.
Due to the ill discipline and the yellow cards, it gave the Crusaders that ability to set their dominance up front, where we know they're really good, and they put the Chiefs under a lot of pressure at line-out time and were excellent themselves at line-out time. But I still think the defence that the Crusaders have shown the last 3 weeks in particular, and touched on it with Jack, they kept the Chiefs, who have been a side that are used to going 60% gain line efficiency with ball in hand, to 26%. And to the Chiefs' credit, they kept the Crusaders to 36%. So both sides, a little bit of a dewy night, wet night. It makes it a little bit easier to defend and get up and put skills under pressure. But to keep a side as big as the Chiefs pack is in terms of that carry contact area to 26% is just a massive reason why they won that game.
And that came down to line speed?
I think so, line speed, but also I suppose I was trying to draw it out of Jack there if they made adjustments around their breakdown play, because they had good numbers on the feet. They didn't waste too many in and around that breakdown area, and if they did, it was, they were effective in it. Either slowing the ball or getting a turnover. So that sort of numbers on feet and getting set early and allowed to put their skill set under pressure. And he said the big target for them was Damien and testing his skill set out. But the boys up front have to do that sort of job to make sure they can get to him.
It was interesting with Damien. I suppose there was a lot of conversation, Bryn, heading into that, that this was Mo'unga versus McKenzie. It's the two form 10s. It's the two guys who are carrying their team really well in recent weeks.
I thought it was pretty even. Look, Richie had his moments where he was able to do some really good things, but I thought Damien played really well considering the 3 yellow cards, and as a 10, you've got to be able to adapt your game to be able to adapt to where players are not going to be on the field. And so he was at a little bit of a Achilles heel there with not being to have 15 players for almost 30 minutes of that game. But he did some really good things defensively. There was a couple of times he did some hard ball gets, which I thought were pretty brave and courageous, which is pretty similar to Richie. But I thought both of them were outstanding on the weekend. I think, you'd have to start thinking, is Damien the second best 10? Is he going to be a genuine option coming off the bench if Bodie isn't selected as a 15? Who's going to win the race for that next number 10 jersey is going to be interesting moving forward.
Yeah, look, I think, out of it shows that potentially there's no reason why he can't go to 15 and still be starting for the All Blacks. But, Will Jordan, the combination that Richie's got there as well, there's a lot of options that they'll want to settle on one and run with it, I'd suggest. But I agree with Bryn. I thought both of them were great. Both had strong games, and we can sit here and dissect it as much as we want and say these are sort of areas where the game was won or lost. But I do think the discipline and the yellow cards were the deciding factor. And the Chiefs held on and they stayed in the fight. Don't get me wrong, but when those guys got off the field, the Crusaders made hay while the sun was shining.
Now, one of the unfortunate things that happened over the weekend was there was booing. One of Ben O'Keefe, two of the Crusaders, they were receiving their medals at the stadium, which is, not a very good way to behave. We've since seen Ben come out on Instagram and talk a little bit about it. He says, unfortunately, as a union referee at the highest level, I've had to accept and grow accustomed to the post-match vitriol that fans normalise post-game. It's a sad reality that it doesn't affect me anymore, but that doesn't mean it's okay. He goes on, I won't read you the entire thing, but he finishes by saying, there were some excellent decisions, there were some poor ones. That I accept I made and need to move on. Continual growth is something that excites me to be better for the game. We need rugby to be the best game in the world, on and off the field. Let's do it together. He's basically asking you to embrace referees and understand they're a key part of the game. They're out there doing their best, and it's not okay. He reaches out within the message to other referees saying, if you want some help, you can send me a message and I can help you the best I can, but everyone please just support these guys. So I think that's a fair statement from Ben. Good on you, Ben, for getting in behind, and other referees as well during that time. Bryn, I suppose what I want to ask is, were the Chiefs fans on the money? Was Ben as bad as they've made him out to be?
I wanted to go back and watch the game again because obviously high of emotion and, watching both teams play and not really being able to dissect it. So I watched it again today, and to be honest, most of his calls were pretty spot on. I obviously know the forward pass. That's an AR thing, I guess, as well. The forward pass, which Jack threw to, I think it was to Tom Christie, was really forward, and that's probably the one that collectively the three of them got wrong. But looking at most of the penalties, they were pretty spot on. And I think it was more so, the Chiefs not being able to adapt to the referee. And so, 6 penalties within the first 12 minutes and then and 3 yellow cards. You've got to think that the Chiefs have missed a job. They're not being able to adapt to the ref, because Ben O'Keefe was really consistent, gave really good communication around it. Even Sam Cane's one, for example, as well. Sam Cane was bringing some really good points and talking with Ben O'Keefe that, if a bird can shit on it, the ball's out. But he was pretty clear when he told him, he said, no, the ball wasn't actually out because of X, Y, and Z. He went in a little bit more deeper around there. But, so I thought Ben was actually really good. And I know a lot of the Chiefs people will be thinking around, I'm being biased, but looking back and around what the penalties were, they were actually pretty much spot on, apart from the one forward pass. But you might think a little bit different, but I thought he actually refereed it pretty well with his penalties.
Oh, yeah, complete opposite of that, Bryn, mate. That's terrible from you. Nah, joking. The point I like to make is, even when sometimes players get singled out for being standouts or not so much. Like, it's a team, and like that's a refereeing team, and there's 4 there, obviously 2 ARs and the match official, and like there's you got to credit, like, that's a big occasion. So often we can see the whistle go away. To make those calls on what he felt he saw was bold and courageous, and just like, I suppose, calling back the try when Damien was said to be within the 10 or leaving early for the overthrow. Those are big calls in a big match that sometimes you see let go. So I thought it was a courageous effort. I can't say I agreed with all of them, but I do think what Bryn said is the key point, and I've labelled it, over a number of years now. It is a skill, adjusting to a ref. So often in games, the good players will push the boundaries early, and they'll see where they are, and then they'll make the adjustments and get in favour of the ref, or sort of know where that boundary is. And the Chiefs just pushed too hard, and that's why I was really interested to see if Jack, but he's probably right, he's not in the forwards, but if they did change their mindset and around it as they were seeing those sort of penalties mount early.
Now, one of the shining lights once again on the weekend was Shaun Stevenson for the Chiefs. Obviously, there was a big conversation last week about him missing out on the squad, his supposed defensive frailties that might have been one of the reasons for it. Once again, he was superb, Jip.
Oh man, he was massive. Like, I was proud of him in terms of the statement, like, he hasn't dropped his lip or anything. He's fronted up and if anything, made an even bigger statement. And obviously Mark Talaire's out for a while, so he potentially does have the opportunity, as we said last week, if he can impress at training. I see no reason why he doesn't get a crack at playing some footy and getting his All Blacks debut over the next month.
Now, we've had a question through from one of our audience. Big Dipper is his name on YouTube. And he was wanting to talk a little bit about the comments, I suppose, on Stevenson. Do you feel like some wingers and fullbacks cop some unfair flack for being bad in defence when they have to defend the attacking team's overlap, 2-on-1s, crossfield kicks, etc.? They get into these situations because usually someone further up the defensive line has missed.
Yes. Well, you go, Bryn.
Go, Joe.
Well, I just think it's not really about, like, as I've always said, stats are half the story, but there are certain players that when they make a decision, they commit to it, and I suppose you can live with that because sometimes, they get it right, but they get it wrong. But also there's other ones that have the ability to buy time and have I suppose, to get that support to stop. So I do think there is, maybe, I don't think they get unfairly treated, because everyone can understand when it's a 2-on-1 and they've got to make a decision, but it's those players that can buy time. Nines have to do a lot of defensive cover as well, so Bryn will be able to talk to it, but there is your really good last line of defence, especially, that sort of fullback wingers. Wingers in particular, because it won't get to the last line if they buy time initially, so I agree, like, there will be mistakes from other people early on, but it is a skill set that will, especially with rush D these days, the more that there's rush D, it does make those players susceptible if they can get it to that space.
Yeah, I think a guy like, I look at Ben Smith, for example, like a very good tackler just in general, and I think that helps when you're a natural tackler and you can tackle well, but I think looking back when he was playing, his angles that he was able to use, he almost wanted them to go where he wanted them to go, if that makes sense. So you'd be able to use a sideline as an example, or maybe he knows that someone's coming in for a sidestep, so he can be able to afford to get a little bit square, or an example like that. And I find that's the real good defending fullbacks have a really good knack to understand, I want to take you here, and this is the best way that I can then make a tackle. And I think Ben Smith is an example, very, very good tackler in his own right, whether he was beaten with footwork late or just in general. I think he was really good. But just to touch on Shaun Stevenson, obviously talked around the defensive, stuff that needs to work on. I thought his defensive efforts on the weekend were really good, and not just his tackling in general. I thought him counter-rucking from kicks in general and being able to get to the body height to then blitz through and go through, I thought was really, really good. And so I think you talk around statements, I definitely think in that area he looked really good. And so I think, to be honest, with that game on the weekend, I think you'll end up seeing him play for the All Blacks. I really do. I think he's going to get given an opportunity with Mark Talaire. And if he does what he needs to do within that 2 weeks of the All Blacks, I genuinely think we'll see him playing for the All Blacks through that performance on the weekend.
It would be good to see, wouldn't it?
I think the way I'd look at his defence is more like how much he's improved, like compared to 2 or 3 years ago. And yes, there's always more improvement, but the message should be like, man, you've done some great stuff and you've got yourself into the sort of international test frame defensively, but these are the sort of things we work on, rather than just labelling him a poor defender, because I think it's been the biggest growth in this game. You know, we know he's got that attacking skill, but he, you know, if you look at some of the games for Harbour last year in terms of last line of defence, he was very courageous.
Now, we did get some more feedback from somebody else last week. We obviously talked about Ian Foster expressing his disappointment in players not texting or messaging him back during the Sky broadcast of the team announcement. You know, I think we said that we thought it might be a bit harsh to mention that publicly. Then your phone rang.
Yeah, I got a bit of a fright. I was like, it was about 9:15. I was like, geez, who's texting this late? But Fozzie wanted me to clarify he was meaning more from his point of view. He was disappointed he didn't get the opportunity to talk, not that he was disappointed the players hadn't got back to him. Yeah. So I said I'd rectify it this week and say that, you know, we misinterpreted that. Yeah. But yeah, and you know, he's a big fan of the show. Enjoyed the chat, so it's good to have the All Black coach as a fan.
And you comment in the YouTube section anytime you like, Fozzie, if you're watching online. We'll happily engage.
We do say engage with us, and he went direct to me.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. And you can engage with us, of course, on Aotearoa Rugby Pod at sky.co.nz. Flick us an email. We've been getting a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's questions. Sometimes it's just someone offloading. And I just get a 3-page email of someone offloading, and I appreciate that too. It's nice to engage with you all. Of course, comment in the YouTube comment section as well, and we'll do our best to respond to any questions that you might have. One of the questions we've got through this week is from Stu Gibson via email. Well, it wasn't so much a question as a statement that I picked up out of his email. He said that he'd be playing Rieko Ioane on the wing because he struggles to set up his wingers in a tight test match. That might be the only chance. I've heard lots of people say this, so I'm really keen to get both of your opinions on whether this is a valid opinion, because it's a widespread opinion.
It's just a generic opinion again, though, similar to Sean's defence. Like, this has been Rico's biggest growth. Like, look at that game against the Waratahs and his ability to set up his outsides where the space was. The numbers just don't add up anymore. Yes, it was originally when he moved from wing to centre, it was an issue, him freeing up his outsides. But this season, no, the last 2 or 3 seasons, you know, he's really, really improved his ability and his selfless nature in that centre role to free up his outsides. And he just hasn't played wing, so, you know, like the way Leicester's playing, you know, he deserves a chance in that 11 jersey.
Bryn?
Yeah, I agree. I think very similar to what Drip was saying around having that perception that Rieko doesn't pass the ball. I've seen a lot of times in the last 12 to 24 months that at full speed he's put guys away to be able to score tries in the corner. You know, so I think, you know, because Rieko is so good and has such great X factor, at times you want him almost to back himself to be able to have a one-on-one or being able to try to not do that last pass, because sometimes he can just beat a player when he needs to. But I think he's made the massive improvements around putting that last play away. You know, like a Jack Goodhue, for example, that's his strength. He's got the ability to be able to do that. But I think Rico's made some massive improvements there. And I think, again, it's like Sean Stevenson. I think he's good in that space now. It's not a question he doesn't do that anymore, in my opinion.
And it's not just what he does on the attacking side of the ball. Like, his speed, because he is as fast, if not faster than most wingers, his speed defensively, you know, is a weapon for the All Blacks now, and the way that he can sort of shut down time and space and force players into decisions that they may otherwise have had more time.
Now, before we go, we've been promising it throughout the Super Rugby season that the winner of our tipping comp would get a shot on the show, and we have the winner with us now. His name is Liam Ireland. He's a 23-year-old student out of Dunedin, and he managed to call 72 out of the 86 games, which is a phenomenal result. It really is pretty good, Jipper.
Very good, very good.
So, Liam, welcome onto the show. Congratulations.
G'day.
On coming on the show. Congratulations on joining us. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? Congratulations on winning the tournament.
Yeah.
Mate, tell us a little bit about your tipping strategy. How do you end up tipping 72 out of 86 games?
Well, yeah, I was asking myself that, you know, what do I do? Well, for one thing, I heard a couple of weeks ago Jipper saying that he tipped with his heart, and that's why he hasn't been doing so well. But big Chiefs Mana fan here, so that was almost every week. a spare point. But yeah, I don't know. I watched a lot of rugby this season, probably too much. And just seeing how different teams are playing, you kind of get a feel about who's performing well and what situation. And then, there's a few games that I guess I picked that not many other people did and ended up near the top.
What do you reckon the game, like the biggest upset that you did pick?
I picked the Drua tipping the Crusaders in Fiji early in the season. I was quite impressed with that. I remember last year the Chiefs and the Highlanders who played over there saying that was the toughest Super Games they've ever played, and then just seeing the squad that the Crusaders put out, which was a little bit not their full strength squad. I thought, I think they're underestimating these guys, and sure enough.
Boom. So what do you do your picks on Thursday night, or how long do you wait before you get those things in?
I usually pick first thing in the week, so I don't forget, but I do wait until the teams come out, have a think, and I usually, on the day of the matches, I'll go in, I'll see what the vibe is, see how I'm feeling, maybe usually leave it pretty stable, but sometimes flick a few here and there. Or I ask my partner as well. She's quite big on rugby. She's saved me a couple times.
Which one did she save you with?
Oh, there was one guy. So she's a big Highlander supporter. And I thought they weren't going to do too well throughout the year, so I tipped the Drua to beat them and Dunedin, and I lost out on that. So I was getting some of the more tighter games, and I was like, I think I might go with the Rebels. And then she's like, no. Gotta believe in the boys. So sure enough, they managed to get it. It was tight. That Rebels Highlanders game, I was on the edge of my seat, but yeah.
But and that could have been the difference in the end because you won by 1 point. So,
yes.
Big ups to it. Maybe we should have had her on the show.
Yeah, no, well, it's a credit that he, canvasses what he has at his disposal to get it right. How was your margin? Did you pick many of the margins on those first games each weekend?
Not early in the season. I was quite wide off, but as the season went on, things started to tighten up a bit, I think. And I wasn't as good on the margins, but there was 1 or 2 weeks where I got within 1 or 2 points. And when they started to get to those tight games at the end of the season, it was getting it easier to pick.
Now, this is a bit of a reach, but you study native frogs, and the frogs are going to be a huge player at the World Cup this year. So I'm very interested to hear your take on them and whether you think, with your tipping, that you're going to pick them to go all the way.
They'll go to the final, I reckon. We'll see. It will be France in the final. Obviously biased towards the ABs. I think the ABs will go all the way. But my real, if I put the All Blacks to the side, Wallabies are going to be the team to beat. They've got an easy run through. They've got a good draw. Eddie Jones, and especially watching them in Super, some of the cattle they've got, and more to come from overseas there. Yeah, I'm picking, if I'm taking the All Blacks out of it, I'm picking a Wallabies French final with the Wallabies winning.
Oof.
Just on there, what gives you confidence? What are you seeing? Obviously, there's the Eddie Jones factor, but what have you seen in Super Rugby that makes you think that they can get the job done? And also the Wallabies when they play as well.
Or just some of the players that they've got coming up, like Carter Gordon, who's just come out of nowhere. And all the older players, Reece Hodge, that's still kicking around. Michael Hooper probably hasn't been in his best form, but he just leads by example. And I think watching those Aussie teams, even if they didn't end up very high on the table, they're still competing with the Chiefs and the Crusaders for good portions of those games. And I think if you get someone like Eddie Jones, who just gets all the pieces and puts them all together, they've got a world beater squad there.
And he's not the only one saying it. Like, I've seen...
their side of the draw.
Yeah.
Well, where teams are placed, because obviously it's decided at the previous one, but where teams are placed currently in terms of form, there is one side that's going to be really hard. Obviously, quarterfinals, probably looking at, sort of South Africa, Ireland, All Blacks, France, and obviously then the winners of that will be in the semi, and then on the other side, obviously, I think it's Scotland, Fiji, England, Australia, and a number of others. So peaking at the right time, that side it gives you a massive opportunity.
Before we let you go, Liam, I just want to give you a plug for your Instagram account, Lim's Jerseys, which was also your moniker within the tipping comp. Behind you, you've got that beautiful Counties Manukau jersey right there. You're obviously wearing a nice throwback Chiefs jersey. Tell us a little bit about what this is all about.
So, I collect rugby jerseys. I started fairly early on. I had a couple of Chiefs jerseys that I'd collect. And then when I went to uni and I was surrounded by Highlanders fans, I thought, I really need to step up my game a bit. And then it just didn't stop. I have about 70 odd jerseys now, 20 Chiefs jerseys. I'm starting to really get into my retro jerseys. And it's good fun. And I like to post them on Instagram. There's a great little community of different rugby fans and rugby jersey collectors on Instagram. Everyone swaps what they've got, sees what they've found in a op shop or something. It's really cool.
Where do you find them?
Trade me, usually for the more retro ones, but I like to just go around op shops and see what they've got. Sometimes you find some really, really cool finds for real cheap because, but it's great. It's great. Fun little hobby.
Got a favourite?
Oh, I do. I do really like this classic Chiefs 1998 one. It's just a bit different,
Do you have a Blues 96, 97?
Oh, no. I have 3 Blues jerseys, not one from then, but it's definitely on the list to get. It's definitely
hard to get.
It's a nice jersey.
Patrick Tuipulotu and myself have been trying to hunt one down for a few years.
Right.
The old classic.
I imagine it would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars if you're going to be able to track down a good version of that.
Oh, yeah. I used to have one. I don't know where it is. One of the moves that got lost.
So I'm also keen to know, because I got fiercely ridiculed for this, that I feel that the best jersey doing the rounds right now in Super Rugby is the Force Away jersey, the yellow and black hoops. I love that jersey. What is your favourite jersey right now?
Right now? Oh, I do like that Force Away jersey.
Yes. See
what I'm saying? I like that Rebels Away jersey. A bit of pink, just a bit of colour as well. Is good. But I do. My favourite is when the Brumbies do their Indigenous jerseys. I like their colour scheme and how they do it. I think when they play in those, they look really smart, really smart.
What's your worst one that you've seen that you don't like, that you think's horrific?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's good questions here, Liam, mate.
That's why he's so surprised. He thinks it's the first one you've had all year.
I think it was a couple of years ago when the Crusaders, they had a blue away jersey, and I can struggle to get behind the Crusaders at the best of times, but when they're playing in blue, that's not on. That's not on.
Is that the when they had all the blue grey ones? They all had the Adidas. Yeah. They were all made out of refined bottles, I think, that were caught out in the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Liam. I'm with you on that, actually. I'm with you. It was horrific to wear.
I think any jersey that has blue in it's fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, one jersey that I do want to know about, because this is another one that I've got a hot take on that everyone ridicules me for. I really like the grey jersey that the All Blacks lost in the 2007 World Cup, and I thought that was an outstanding away jersey. It's been soiled by the result, but are you on board with that?
It's a bit. I'm not sure. Not about that one specifically. I'm not opposed to the grey. I think the grey can look quite nice, but that jersey, you can't help but just feel heartache when you see it.
Fair enough too. Fair enough. Hey, well, Liam, thank you very much for joining us, mate. And well done on 72 points from 86 games and winning the tipping comp over the 15 weeks of the regular season.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for listening, for watching.
Sweet. Every week. Never miss it.
Good man.
Nice. Okay, well, thank you very much to Liam. And as ever, James Parsons to my left. We've got no weekend of footy for you this weekend?
Oh, we'll find some reruns.
Jeez, you get withdrawals.
I will.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult weekend for Jipper. And thanks again, Bryn.
No problems, boys. Awesome to be here.
Nice. Good to have you home, mate. And thank you very much for watching the Aotearoa Rugby Pod once again. You can catch us, of course, on Sky. You can catch us on audio pod, catch us on RugbyPass on YouTube. Or you can just send us an email, make some comments. We'd like to interact with you. Thank you once again for tuning into the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Mā te wā.